Welcome into Jungle Tales, a Pirate Baseball podcast, coming to you here live on a Wednesday night, January 22nd. We are 23 days, or Keith LeClaire days, from first pitch. Hard to believe, and you know it's baseball season because you have several inches of snow on the ground and the temperatures in the mid-20s. But right now, I'd like to welcome in tonight's guest. Certainly no stranger to Pirate fans, and he's followed the Pirates for years and years, runs Next Level Training Center in Greenville, and that is Trent Britt. Trent, welcome in.
Thank you, Bubba. I'm excited to be here. Good to reconnect with you again.
How's the weather?
Yeah, you just nailed it. It's this is supposed to be Saturday, was going to be the first live game I got to see. Pitt Community College was supposed to open play against Gaston, and we've got 4 inches of snow on the ground here, which is the first snow we've had in a couple of years. So interesting day at work today, and definitely nothing about the way the weather feels right now. It's about 20 degrees outside. That feels like baseball.
Yeah, no doubt. I did not realize they had that on the schedule this weekend. I knew the Division II ranks, and I guess perhaps D3 open on the 31st. But as always, interested to see how Tommy Eason and the Bulldogs do this year. And what's Tommy been there now? Right at 2 decades?
A really long time. Yeah, I get to see Coach a lot. We're their indoor facility, so they kind of have a standing like 1 p.m. time with us if they're not able to get on their field. So I spend a lot of time with Coach Eason and Coach Wood. And those guys are in almost every single day. A lot of them come in before, after practice. So they were kind of excited about getting to play Saturday. And originally, earlier in the week, it looked like it was supposed to be sunny and 53. But Coach Eason told me on Monday and Tuesday that the field, they've got it tarped, but it just it's just been so cold. And now we've got the snow, so it doesn't look good for Saturday. But we didn't talk today. They're out of school tomorrow, so they can't practice. So it's a little different rules for them. But I'm thinking I'm not going to get to watch baseball Saturday. I'll just say that.
I appreciate everyone chiming in the comment section. We have Justin Butts, the younger brother of Brett Butts, former Pirate pitcher. Justin's an umpire now, and he said he was supposed to have that game. So, Justin, let us know what other games you have here in the coming days and weeks. I know he calls primarily high school, but also some JUCO ball.
Yeah, and he may know. I don't know that it's been canceled yet. I haven't been told that, but I'm just assuming that it probably is a tough ask for them to get the games in this weekend. So,
yeah, no assumptions. But no, Trent. No, we've chatted a lot down through the years, and always enjoy talking East Carolina baseball. And we'll definitely get to that. That's going to be the bulk of this conversation. But before we do that, something I realized I don't think we'd ever discussed is, just kind of your path into what you're doing now. You certainly have a passion for not only the diamond sports with baseball and softball, but the strength and conditioning and speed and agility side of things. So tell us about your background and how you wound up where you've been, running Next Level Training Center for the last 15 years or so.
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. So I graduated East Carolina in 1993. I graduated from there. I had a communications degree with an exercise science minor. And my first job was in the Triangle area, kind of personal training, working at a health club, training folks. I worked with just pure luck. I got an opportunity to work with some hockey players in the East Coast Hockey League, if anybody remembers the Raleigh Ice Caps that used to play at Dorton Arena. And so that was kind of my intro to working with, professional athletes a little bit, and had a real passion for that, but had a child on the way and decided to make a career change. And so I worked for, about 15 years in the corporate world, both in the finance world and then pharmaceutical world, but I coached a lot during that time. So I coached in Greenville Little Leagues for a decade, coached a bunch of all-star teams, coached at the middle school level, had a son and daughter that were pretty accomplished themselves. My son, through his achievement, that introduced me to a lot of relationships. He played collegiately and then played professionally. Played at the Division I level at Liberty University, and had a real good career here. And so through them, I was able to develop relationships. Through Dalton's experience, I met a lot of scouts. But in 2010, when he was in 8th grade at the time, we bought Next Level Training Center, or kind of took it over, and kind of had a vision that we thought it could be a indoor baseball, softball training space for for athletes that wanted to kind of work on that all 12 months, not necessarily at the expense of playing other sports, but just a place where kids could go and get better. And so we kind of ventured into that in 2010, and here we are now, in year 15, and it's grown beyond anything I could ever have imagined, honestly. And we're really blessed to get to do it. But, the relationships I made along the way coaching at the youth level, I coached a total of 19 years, I think, here in this community in both the baseball and baseball and basketball worlds. I coached a little bit of football as well. I coached some school basketball. So those relationships helped. My kids growing up in this community helped. I've always been very, very involved here in the Greenville community, which we moved back to in 1996. So I was here 89 to 93. We left 93 to 96, and we've been back here since 1996. So this is home, although I'm from Fayetteville originally. And so, that's kind of the most condensed version I can give you.
With you, being a Fayetteville guy, or where did you attend high school? I don't believe you said.
Yeah, I went to Pine Forest High School in Fayetteville,
Okay.
And then my parents relocated to the Triangle area when I was just out of ECU. So I haven't been back to Fayetteville much since then, because my family, are all in the Triangle area now. In terms of my mom and dad, that's where they moved. My dad's passed away, but mom still lives there. Younger brother lives there. Sister lives there. Both my kids are in that area now as well. So then my youngest brother's down in South Florida. So nobody's in Fayetteville still, but those definitely were my formative years. I was in Fayetteville from 1st grade through graduating high school.
Growing up, were you a kind of play it all kind of guy?
I was a basketball guy coming up. I played baseball, basketball. I didn't have I worked really hard. I was a really late bloomer. I had some really small school opportunities to maybe play basketball. I thought I could come to East Carolina and walk on. Mike Steele was the head coach my freshman year. Paul Childress and Ike and some of the guys that were there when I was in school were really kind, and I got to kind of occasionally, shoot with them a little bit and just hang out just a bit, but never a real opportunity to get a legitimate walk-on shot. And so I just tried to dominate the intramural world at East Carolina whenever I was there. And I finally kind of blossomed and got my man body when I was in college. But I gave baseball up actually my 8th grade year and kind of just decided to focus on basketball. Fayetteville at that time was more of a football basketball town. And my particular high school, basketball was really, really good during that time I was there. So, and the league was great. It was the Mid-South 4A back then. So I didn't stick with baseball as long as I wish I had. And I certainly did not have the type of support network that Greenville has and that these kids get from really 9 years old on, with with all the things they've got at their disposal to kind of feed that passion if they're baseball players or softball players.
Yeah, not to deviate too much, but you're talking about Fayetteville and just the way that city and football was so big. Back in those days, I remember, I was in the greater Winston-Salem area at West Forsyth my freshman year, and then at North Davidson. But I just remember, I guess E. Smith is where Junior Smith was out of, but it seems like Fayetteville Bird, they were always strong, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, when Coach Paroli was there, they made I don't know how many state championships in a row in football. And it was an 8-team league, and in football and basketball, it was a tough conference for sure. It's really kind of, I don't want to say gotten watered down, but there's so many new schools that have come up, and Fayetteville is so large with teenagers. I mean, it's military and teenagers, and so it's just a completely different deal now. They've got 2 different conferences that town's kind of split in, and it's still tons of great athletes down there, but it's kind of spread out over a whole lot of different high schools now.
with the nature of what you do, there have been several East Carolina players down through the years, those local kids that you've worked with,
Yeah.
or, perhaps someone like Alec Burleson, after his East Carolina career, when he's coming back to Greenville and working out in the off season. Had the chance to see Burley play a couple games against the Braves last year. I think perhaps you were there as well. He hit one out well on top of the chop house, something like 430 or 40 feet. And
Saw
that,
Schwellenbach. He tells me about it all the time because I'm a
yeah,
Braves fan. So it was the longest home run he's hit so far, and it was absolutely murdered. Yeah.
and that's one of those things. I'm a Braves guy, but when it comes to, I think growing up, I don't know that I would have necessarily been this way, but the way I am now, in that situation, I'm pulling for the Pirate to succeed, and obviously not just that case, but just whether it's Jeff Hoffman pitching for the Phillies against the Braves, and you hope it's not going to be in a situation where the game's on the line like it was a time or two with Hoff a couple years ago, but definitely want the Pirates to do well. But talk about that relationship you've been able to develop with Alec Burleson, and the way, he's really improved himself the last few off seasons at next level.
Yeah. Well, prior to him finishing at East Carolina, I knew Alec, but I didn't know him well. And, it was, I believe, through Bryant Packer. Brian and I are very close. Brian grew up in our place. I actually officiated Bryant Packer's wedding in November, which I had never done anything like that before. And he asked me to be the officiant. And so I had to go through that process and figure out how the heck to marry somebody. But I think that's a whole nother story. But Bryant, I think I kind of met Alec through Bryant, and I had worked with Bryant some as he was getting into pro ball. But Alec and I have gotten very close, and he actually moved here, and he's bought a house here to be here in the off season with his wife Mary. And so this is the third off season of the last 4 that I've had Alec. He was with Brandon Golden, who was his college strength coach 2 years ago. And but Alec and I had a great off season last year. I think we've had just as fruitful of one so far this year. Real specific in kind of what we're trying to achieve and do. And Alex, obviously, special talent. He's unique in his personality type. I've had to really kind of learn him and understand what drives him, how to communicate with him, when to push, when to back off. But we've developed a friendship, a relationship. So it's more than just a performance coach and a player. I follow, obviously, I try to follow every night. I usually have every Braves game on. And then, with Gavin Williams, anytime he pitches, I'm trying to watch that because I'm very close with Gavin as well. And then with Alec, I try to see every at bat. It's really fun to watch guys that, you're friends with and you have a personal investment in. So I'm a huge Alec fan, and I feel a lot of not in an arrogant way, but just in an adult way. I just feel a responsibility to hopefully kind of help him get what he deserves to get, which is that next contract. And so we've had a really good off season together. I'm with him 4 to 6 days per week. We're kind of heading toward the time right now where we'll be together almost every day. He's training with a guy named Shane Rademacher. Shane's in the Giants organization. Shane played at Chowan, and Shane grew up at our place and went to J.H. Rose High School. And I've known Shane since he was 9, very close with Shane, and they've been training partners this whole off season. And Shane's been great for Alec. Shane's a really hard worker. He's self-made. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at, and we've got about 3 weeks left. We're kind of turning the heat up now and trying to prep him to head to spring training, kind of with a bulletproof body. Hopefully as injury-proof as we can make it, and as powerful as he can be, and feeling really good about himself.
I also saw, perhaps it was last summer, you and Gaynell had the opportunity to go out to St. Louis to watch the Cards for a game or few, and I know that had to be a neat experience.
No, it was. I had hoped to get out there earlier, but with the success that the softball team had here, being in the World Series, and just some things that we were really involved with, it was just hard to get away. And we did go out there for 3 days, really just to kind of love him up. And, like, we just want to spend a little bit of time with him in his world. I wanted to see how he's living and show me what your day-to-day is like, so I understand it better. And, how are you eating? What things do you do during the day before you show up at the ballpark? What's your schedule? Because he tells me these things, but it's kind of good to see. And I wanted to see kind of pregame, postgame, and then just watch him play. Just be a fan. And I wasn't there for work. I was there as a friend and just somebody that wanted to watch him play. We obviously got a little bit of a behind the curtain view that not everybody gets, which was great, and got to go spend some time at the place that he lives. And I just wanted to kind of see how he was living day to day. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was really cool. One of the games when he was mic'd up, not necessarily when you were there, but just I don't know if it was Sunday Night Baseball or whatnot, but Burley was mic'd up, and that was cool to allow folks to see his personality. But
he did that. And then the other thing that worked out great with us is Sean Armstrong had been traded just a week or so prior to when we went. So Sean was with the Cardinals, and Sean was actually living in the hotel that's attached to the stadium for the last 2 months or so of the season. So we got to spend some time down on the field with Sean after the game. And just I've known Sean a really long time. Sean actually taught and did pitching lessons at Next Level during his early years when he and Mike Wright were kind of coming up together through the minor leagues. And Sean's doing some great things right now in the business world. He's still playing, but he's really preparing for life after baseball. He's opening another facility up, and he's got some merchandise. We use some of his weighted balls and some of his Armstrong stuff that he has for keeping shoulders and elbows healthy. So it was great to get to spend some time with Sean on that same trip.
Yeah, I was excited to see Sean sign with the Rangers, I guess, right before Christmas. And, what a unique year it was for Sean. He bounced around, but the good thing is he was employed and continuing to live the dream, and very unusual, getting to pitch for both the Cardinals and the Cubs last year.
Absolutely. And I'll put a bow on it with this with Alec. I don't want to get it twisted in any way. The truth is, Bubba, I think anytime you're dealing with professional players and major league players, and look, I haven't had the opportunity, the pleasure or gift of getting to work with a ton of major league players. I hope there'll be more down the road. We've got a lot of guys on that path that I've already got relationships with, and there's a couple of guys in the buildings now that I could see making their debuts this year. But I learned a lot working with Alec. It's not just a situation where like I'm working with him and he's doing all the learning. It works both ways. I mean, I kind of have to, when you're talking about a big leaguer and they've got the kind of money at stake that he does, you think about everything you're doing, and there's sometimes a little, cause for pause with things that we do that I don't have to think about as much with a middle schooler or high schooler who's just purely in the developmental stage. With Alec, he's a lot more developed. And so we've got to be a lot more dialed in with what we're doing. I've got to be able to explain to him why. And he's got to buy into that. And so I learn just as much from him as he does from me. And that's the truth. And I hope even at, I'm 54 years old, but I tell people all the time, I hope I'm still learning when I'm 64 years old. I like to learn, and it's, working with athletes, there is always a different way to do things. And so, he challenges that at times. That's for sure.
Before we move on, Betty Burleson chiming in from, I'm assuming, Lincoln County tonight. Appreciate you, Betty.
100%. I was actually just asking Alec about his mom today.
But, I had the opportunity, I guess it was in the last year or two. I think it was when the Pirates, you'll recall that game, ECU played with Queens at the Kannapolis Cannonballers Stadium, which is about 5 miles from my house. I think it was that night, met the Burlesons. But, moving to the ABCA convention up in Washington, D.C. I know that took place a couple weeks ago, back in the first week of January. I know it's an excellent time. I haven't been to that one, but back in I know I went to the baseball bash in Richmond. I'm sure you've heard of it. Going to that down through the years several times when I was coaching in the high school ranks. That was always a lot of fun and just so much knowledge being shared. What were some of your major takeaways? Did you hear anything concerning the roster and scholarship limits or um, any of those hot topics?
Yeah, so the ABCA, which is the American Baseball Coaches Association, what an awesome event that is. So there are usually 7,000 to 8,000 coaches there. It's really neat because you got guys like me that aren't even college coaches that are, I may be sitting right beside somebody like a Ron Polk, who I spend a little bit of time with every year just because he coached my son in the Cape Cod League. He was Dalton's infield coach one summer. And so you got just a average Joe like me, and I'm getting the opportunity to just sit right next to somebody like Ron Polk, who I think's the greatest college coach ever. And you're all listening to speakers together and just trying to learn. And so for me, what that provides every year, Bubba, before we get into our busiest time of the year, it kind of kicks the year off where I get a chance to just get into a learning environment for a couple of days. You listen to 2 days of talks from coaches from all over that are, from the high school to junior college to MLB to, motivational speakers like John Gordon. So you have an opportunity to choose what you want to go listen to. There's a couple of breakout rooms, but the big room houses, 5,000 to 7,000 coaches, and you're watching presentations. And I think for me, it just kind of whets my appetite for the upcoming year. And, back to your original question of, did I hear anything new? I didn't. I think that, right now there's still some topics being kicked around in terms of, if the rosters are going to be limited to 34 players, when does it have to be at 34? And originally it had been presented maybe December the 1st. I know there's some pushback from coaches. I don't know that they've landed on that yet for sure, but I do think there'll be some changes. Obviously next year, the rosters are going to go from 40 to 34, it looks like. And that's probably a done deal. And it's just a matter of whether they, when it has to be set at that number. So, but the conference as a whole is awesome. It's always enriching for me to not just learn, but also just to kind of rekindle old relationships, I guess. Anywhere we've got players from our building that they're playing, I try to seek out those coaches and just kind of check in on the kid with the coach, no matter the level, whether it's Division I, Division II, NAIA, junior college, and just talk about the player a little bit from our building. How are they doing? This is what I saw over Christmas. I'll be following your program, that type of thing. And coaches appreciate that. And I try to come across not as somebody that's trying to get anything out of that, other than just to keep the relationship strong enough that if we have other kids that they want to recruit, that I can help liaison that a little bit. So it's Gaynell does a great job. She goes with me every year, and there's 350 or so vendors. So everybody, we buy balls, nets, L screens, turf, tees, everybody we purchase anything from, they're at that event. Technology companies, we just bought TrackMan not too long ago. So we meet with all of them, make sure they have a name with a face. So we do a little networking with that as well. So it's a great weekend.
Yeah, Coach Polk, obviously such a college baseball legend, Mississippi State, those 2 stints in Starkville with a 2-year stint at Georgia in between. And then just to show you the baseball junkie and just a lifelong learner and just a fanatic for the game that he is, in his mid-60s, he went to UAB in the, quote, volunteer role for 12 years.
Yep. He's achieved a lot. He's written a book, and he's considered the godfather of the SEC. And the thing is, he's so generous with his time. Like he gives me time every year. He checks on my son. He texts my son on his birthday. I mean, how does he remember that? He had him for for part of one summer up in the Cape Cod League. You think of the number of players he's interacted with, but just to kind of have that ability to make you feel like you matter. That means a lot to me. And I always tell him that, just, hey, thank you for giving me 10 minutes just to ask how my family's doing, how my son's doing. So yeah, he's something.
one other note about the ABCA convention before we talk about the Pirates, and that is Davis Kirkpatrick, the former Pirate pitcher, son of Donnie Kirkpatrick, pitching coach at Brunswick Community College, the Division II JUCO ranks. Davis was named the Assistant Coach of the Year in the Division II of junior college. So congrats to Davis. I know you had the opportunity to catch up with him.
Yeah, it was so cool to me when they have these giant panels. Whenever you show up, you see him kind of there in the background, that picture. And as I'm walking by with my wife, I had forgotten that, and I saw it, and I was like, "Holy crap!" So I immediately texted Misty and DK, and I said, "Hey, are you here?" And she wasn't, but Davis obviously was. He was. That's how they started the morning off on Friday, was presenting all the awards. So we made sure to catch up with Davis. There's a picture there, I think you're showing right now, of him and his high school coach, Jason Mills. It's really cool. He's obviously a D.H. Conley kid, played for Coach Mills, and then he grew up in Next Level Training Center, and then we watched him at East Carolina. So he's really found his groove and really likes it down there at Brunswick. And so my wife and I were able to spend just a few minutes with him outside the main meeting room and catch up just a little bit. And he's so naturally shy, so that's so out of his element to stand up in a room in front of 6,000-7,000 people and get recognized. It's just not his natural. That's not his natural habitat. But it was really cool to see him up there.
Yeah, and congrats to Davis. Now, with East Carolina baseball, there's no shortage of topics to talk about. There's so much newness, for lack of a better way of putting it, for the Pirates. 31 new additions to this roster, the most ever in Cliff Godwin's 11th year now as head coach. I think previously it was the upper 20s, maybe 28, 29 one year. But, it's obvious we're not going to belabor the losses too much. But, Trey Savage, Zach Root, Danny Beal, Wyatt Lunsford, Sheikman, and then, a few other arms that were key depth pieces, or spot relief guys like Aaron Groller. Then positionally, Joey Barini, Jacob Starling, Carter Cunningham, both your catchers, and McChrystal and J-Dub, JC, etc. So entering this year, before we dive into some of the specifics with these new roster pieces, what's your take on things?
Yeah, you nailed it. Listen, you and I have both been East Carolina baseball fans for a really long time. To have greater than 75% of your overall roster be new is unprecedented here. And so some of it just may be the day and times we're now operating in. I hope not. I hope this is not, the new norm and maybe just the extreme this year. But we lost a tremendous amount of production, and yet I think all of us still have sort of the same expectations, which really just shows you the faith we have in Cliff Godwin and Jeff Palumbo and Austin Knight and that staff, and just the fact that we've got this thing rolling so much right now, and they have it rolling, that we kind of expect a little bit of a plug and play. And, it's no shortage of talent, but I think all of us, including the coaches, still have some questions of like what that's going to look like, especially come May or June. There'll be one way it looks in February of this is based on the fall where we think things fall, but I think there's going to be probably a little more feeling out process than we've had in the past, because you just simply don't have as many guys returning that are cemented into roles.
One of those guys, exactly what you're getting. Dixon Williams, D.H. Conley product, had a heck of a year a season ago, and most folks will definitely remember the home run against Wake Forest in the regional there in the middle innings. And then you think of his athleticism and versatility, with plays like he made down in Clearwater against Wichita State, stealing home.
Well, Dixon, every great player kind of has that. You're looking for kind of that magical moment where you feel like, okay, they're now ready to sort of become a superstar if they've got superstar abilities. And Dixon certainly has a lot of gifts, and he had gifts in high school. And again, we've known Dixon a really long time. He grew up in our place. Again, he played locally at D.H. Conley High School. You know, he was a Whitfield kid coming up, and we've known Dixon since he was, you know, a little boy, and he's got a lot of gifts, and he's got a phenomenal body that God's given him and that he's worked hard for. Really gifted athletically, he can do a lot of things. You know, I'll start right there with that middle, because I think the middle is going to be a Pitt County middle, because Alex Boucher, who's also from here in Greenville and grew up in our place, is going to be a shortstop, and I think Dixon's going to be a second to start the season. And that's two really physical kids. Alex came from Old Dominion. He's been there the previous 2 years, and he has looked fantastic at shortstop defensively. He is a big physical kid, but the two of them, Dixon and Alex Boucher, are really good friends. They're really tight. They're very good for each other. They were over Christmas in together a lot in Next Level, and I had a chance to catch up with both of them together quite a bit. And I'm excited about what they're going to provide in the middle of that diamond. Now, look, both of them are very flexible position-wise. I mean, Boucher has played third base his freshman year and first base last year at Old Dominion his sophomore year, and now we're going to play him at shortstop this year. But coming up, he was a shortstop. So, and ECU recruited him his sophomore year in high school as a shortstop. He eventually ended up at Old Dominion, but he's now here. So I'm fired up for the leadership Dixon's going to provide. I think he's ready to take that role on. I think that 3-run homer off Chase Burns was sort of his moment where he sort of became a star, and he parlayed that into a phenomenal summer. You know, did some really big things this summer in summer ball. So, yeah, I think I'm excited to watch those two guys. My wife was just commenting today how excited she was about the season coming, because those are her kids. Those are her boys. She knows them personally. She's watched them. And so it's real personal for her that she's very excited to just go watch them play, you know, and the Pirates.
You talk about obviously one veteran guy there, or actually two veteran guys, but even though, you know, Alex had been primarily, you know, on the corner, you know, previously at Old Dominion, but in center field, Riley Johnson, Cliff Godwin says he's the best center fielder he's ever coached, and you know, Cliff's certainly coached at several tremendous institutions, and Riley had double shoulder surgery, and you know, by all accounts is doing very well in his recovery and bouncing back from that.
Yeah, I actually checked in on him today through one of the assistants, and just wanted to make sure he was good to go for the season, and he's good to go. And man, he's fun to watch. I tell you, Bubba, thinking back to so his freshman year, they had to spend some time in Next Level because of COVID. They couldn't use the Murphy Center, and I just remember the first time I met him, I just never would have guessed, looking at the package and not knowing the kid, that he would become, to me, one of the most freakishly athletic center fielders we've ever had. Almost like a cross between like a Ryan Jones and a Brian Cavanaugh type, with just freaky athleticism, you know, just all twitched up and so sudden, and, you know, just no regard for his body. I love watching him play. He's going to go down as one of my favorite players to watch that's ever played at East Carolina, I think, by the end of this year, just because I love watching him play center field. I love watching him run. He just gobbles up ground for a guy that doesn't have long legs. And he's just a baseball player. I mean, I think any coach would love coaching a kid like that.
Certainly. And you look at it last year, I think he's stole close to 25 bases.
Yeah, you know, I think the thing that he has sneaky power. Like I was saying before, he's kind of all twitched up, just means he's very sudden with everything, very explosive. And, you know, you've seen him turn on a couple of balls out of nowhere and just destroy him to right field. So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he's a kid that, I don't want to put numbers on him, but he is more than capable of stealing 20 bags and hitting 10 home runs, even at his size. I don't know that that's what he'll be called to do. I don't know what his role will be offensively, where he'll hit in the lineup, but I'm sure Coach Godwin would not turn it down if you offered those numbers to him right now. And I think Riley if he stays healthy and can play all year, like, he should put up a lot of production.
He definitely will. I hope he has an excellent year for the Pirates, and there's no doubt he'll provide the leadership that this team needs. He and Dixon, but Alex Boucher, and got a question here from Johnny Gardner. He wanted you to describe that moment that occurred at Next Level, where he made that announcement. Actually, it was before he made the announcement, and the kids there at Next
Oh,
Level. We're trying to sway him to choose the Pirates. It seems like.
that was actually awesome. So he was actually in, if I remember right, and that's a great question. We had our summer camp going on. We do it for 4 days in the summer, and it is just complete organized chaos. With you usually have about 80 kids, and we're playing dodgeball and pickup baseball, and just I'm letting them be as violent as they want to be in there without hurting each other. We play every version of dodgeball you can imagine, and we were playing dodgeball, if I remember correctly. It was shirts and skins. We had about 80 kids, and I look over, and Dixon and Parker Bird and Alex Boucher are in there hitting, and I don't know. I literally said to him, I said, you know what, we may not have all the NIL money to swoon you, but this is your hometown, and watch this. And I had already prepared the kids what to do. So that was our recruiting pitch. He had a visit scheduled that day to go over there, and I said, these kids want to see you play here. And so that was our sales pitch, our recruiting pitch to him, to try to get him to choose the Pirates, as his portal home, which that's really the only place he ever wanted to come if he was going to leave ODU. He's very happy at Old Dominion, but to get a chance to play your hometown. And so, yeah, that was very cool. That was really funny.
And that was something that was definitely noted on multiple occasions, be it by Cliff or Coach Palumbo in interviews since he became a Pirate. And, that is, that how he was recruited, and that was a pre-existing relationship, and he opted to go to Old Dominion because he had ties to that Tidewater region.
Family there, yep.
But of course, having played at South Central and been an excellent prospect coming out of that program, the Pirates had recruited him, and this is one of those reasons don't burn any bridges and have an opportunity to reconnect down the road, and it's hopefully going to pay off for both parties. And another guy we have returning, he got a handful of starts a year ago, but he's mainly some pinch hit ABs, and he also saw time on the mound, and that's Colby Wallace. And Colby, I know, has added probably 15 pounds from what I've heard, and definitely look forward to a big year from him.
Yeah, what I've seen, Bubba, and it's just my opinion, kind of what I've observed, I would expect, if I had to make a guess, and you asked me today to put a lineup down, I think Colby will be at first base, probably that opening weekend. Probably right now the lead horse to start at first base. Could be at third. Obviously, that's where he played last year. But I think it's likely he's at one of the corners, maybe at first, and going to also pitch some. You're going to see him on the mound, I think, and he's very talented on the mound. I mean, he could be a mid-90s guy, and he's just a competitor. And yeah, big things are going to be expected of him. He's really talented again, and a talented two-way guy. So I think you could easily see him, starting at first base and then coming in from first to the mound.
At third, Braxton Trammell, perhaps. He swung a excellent bat this fall, and he's from the same high school as Sean Jenkins, who we'll talk about here in a few minutes. But Coach Godwin's talked about how strong Braxton is in the weight room, especially that lower half, and I believe he's also a switch hitter.
Yeah, and I don't want people to, that are listening, I don't want to get it confused. You and I are obviously just speculating. There's still there's position battles going on, right? And you look at our infield right now at third base, and I think that probably, again, if the season started tomorrow, you're asking me to talk about players here. It's my guess, just what I've seen in the fall, continuing to follow these kids, watching them, talking to some of the players occasionally. You ask them the same questions, hey, who do you think will be where? And, my guess is that he's got a very good chance as a true freshman to be the day one starter at third base. But keep in mind, Alex Boucher has started at third base. Dixon Williams has started at third base. Colby Wallace has started at third base. So you have, your entire infield are guys that at some point or another have started at third base. And so you don't know exactly how it'll shake out. You've got several other infielders pushing for playing time hard as well. Obviously, Roger Vergara, the junior college player. You've got a couple of returners, that were already in the program that are pushing for time. They're really good players. You got a couple other freshmen. But Trammell, I'll tell you this, every weekend someone would text me and say, tell me about the Trammell kid. Gosh, he caught my eye today. That would go watch a scrimmage game. He's just a kid that he looks ready to play right now. He's got a very advanced body. He's 5'10" or so, close to 220. Really, really powerful lower half. Really mashes the baseball and barrels the ball a lot. Looks very, very good at third base in terms of his ability to cleanly field balls and rip them across the diamond. The opportunity for him is probably a little bit with his range. He may not have quite the athleticism maybe that Dixon has at third base, for example, last year, but maybe a little bit more of a prototypical third baseman. But he's going to hit, and he's going to get a glove in front of the baseball, and he'll continue with his lateral quickness and ability to get reads. That'll get better the more he plays, but he is a really, really fun guy to watch, and I think Pirate fans are going to enjoy watching him this season, both in the field and especially at the plate.
The way you describe his physique, not having seen him in person yet, is having flashbacks to Jake Dean. Not that I don't know that he was that tall, but just sounds kind of similar to Jake Dean.
Bigger than Dino, though. Bigger than Dino, even. Yeah, that's a good comparison. But I'd say he's taller than Dino, and he's thicker than Dino even was. But yeah, that's the body type. Or an Eric Tyler, even, that was a bit,
Yes.
But this kid fills out a pair of baseball pants. I'll tell you that right now. He's got a set of quads and hamstrings and glutes on him. Like he is a good looking kid when he's in the box, and he's kind of got that hip hinge and squatted down ready to hit. So he's going to be one fans are going to really like.
Another local kid that I know had been battling an injury from Cliff Godwin's alma mater over in Greene County, Greene Central High School, Braden Burris. What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, I got a chance to see him play in high school a couple of times. They obviously, had a hell of a year last year. We have quite a few kids from the current Greene County roster that kind of come into our building and work with Coach Lance. And so I saw him play in high school. And he's my kind of baseball player, just meaning I like guys that can do everything and take pride in doing everything. And, he does everything. He defends, he runs, he can get a bunt down, he can drive a double in the gap to both parts of the field. He was a guy for me that, I commented to Coach Palumbo, I think, that I felt like every time I would get time and be able to pop out there for a practice or an inter-squad scrimmage, he would just do something that would catch my eye. I saw one time I went out there, he went horizontal like 3 times in 4 batted balls to make plays at shortstop, just effort plays. And that catches my eye. I love that. I don't think you can turn off being a competitor. And so you're either a competitor or you're not. And I felt like I just saw him compete, in situations where not everybody chooses to always compete. The guys are taking BP, but he's taking live ground balls at short off the BP. And I'm the father of a career middle infielder. And so those types of things to me mean a lot. I think that's how you get better. So I know Braden's going to push for playing time. He's another one that, like we were talking about with Boucher, like we were talking about with Dixon Williams, like he's got a lot of defensive versatility. So he could play a number of positions. And I don't know what opportunity he'll get this year, but he's going to find his way on the field at some point. And it may be this year because he can play so many spots. There's just so many new guys. It will shake itself out. But I think Braden's going to do really good things here.
Several minutes ago, when we transitioned into the positional player discussion, I talked about J-Dub, Justin Wilcoxon, and then also Ryan McChrystal, and them departing the program. guys that were excellent at the plate, combining for well over a 300 average and 20 plus bombs, and and very solid defensively as well. Walker Barron, last year we saw some things from him offensively. Defensively, needed to make some strides. What did you see from Walker this fall?
Well, he was a little bit dinged up, and I think I don't know Walker real well. So like you, I just know what I saw last year, and I think he only had one start last year. Limited at bats. I think he had 11 or 12 at bats last year, if I remember correctly. So for me, when people ask me, and a number of people have, like, hey, what are you the most excited about? What are you the most concerned about? For me, it's been a long time since we have had, the catching position where we had virtually no experience returning. So to me, I feel like it's Walker's job. Like, he clearly, to me, again, my eyes, looked like he won the job in the fall and, has a chance to be a really good player. But we've been really blessed with some really talented catchers and incredibly productive catchers. You think back over the last 25 years, who's been behind the plate and how talented they are. So for me, that's the position right now when you look at this roster that I go, you have the most questions there because we don't have anybody that's going to be back there that's done it here yet. But Walker certainly looks capable. He looks like the guy. You've got a true freshman in Kalinich, and then you've got the transfer from Boston College, John Collins, kind of competing as well. But I think to start the year, I think Walker's probably the guy. And I hope we're going to see great things from him. It's just, he's going to have a lot of firsts because, again, he has not had an opportunity to start, but I think one game so far.
Yeah, John Collins is an interesting story. As you mentioned, coming to East Carolina from Boston College, but prior to that, he had a very good career at the Division III level. The institution he was at, which is escaping me right now, but he was that program's home run leader. So he does have some pop in his bat, and then like you mentioned, Kalinich, I believe out of Florida.
Yes. Yep.
And so looking forward to what he brings to the table and how he develops moving forward. Kind of transitioning to the outfield, we already talked about Riley Johnson, but other than Riley, is very much seemingly from afar, from the outside looking in, kind of up for grabs there on the corners. You have Jack Herring, the transfer from Rollins College, a very solid D2 career, and he spent last year with the Greenville Yard Gnomes.
Yeah, I got to know Jack really well. We kind of set his host family up for him. He stayed with the Walker family, who are big Pirate fans. Jack's a great kid, and it's a funny story, Bubba. This is really how it happened with him. He got an opportunity to go to that regional, and 2 games into that regional, he literally looked at me and he looked at his Yard Gnomes coach at the time, and he said, "I don't want to leave here." He just thought it was the most amazing environment, and it was so powerful to him. He had an absolute blast in the jungle, and there were several players that kind of commented on that. Really talented kids that just seeing the environment and the atmosphere and the excitement level. I mean, he made his mind up right then, like, I want to be a Pirate. And I remember he and I having a conversation about it in my office, and I was very honest with him. And I said, Jack, look, they're not going to talk to you because you're not in the portal, and they're not going to talk to you. And if you have any intention of trying to, play at a program like this, you need to go have a monster summer. Like, you need to look different. Like, I don't have any opinion of you right now. I've never seen you play. I've seen video. But so from there to the end of the summer, like, watching him, it was pretty apparent to me, just getting to watch him this summer and seeing him at next level every day. Like, this kid can really hit. And, it was his decision. He pursued East Carolina. Everything was done by the book. Coach Godwin, Coach Palumbo, they knew he had interest, but they would not talk to him because he was not in the portal. He was going to go back to Rollins if he didn't think he could make the team at East Carolina. But he's a kid that's got a lot of pop. He can really swing the bat from both sides of the plate. A little more limited defensively. That's where his opportunity is right now, and he's working on that. But I think what he gives you is a 22-year-old power hitter, particularly from the left side right now, that you can use in the DH role, could play some left field for you, could be a big bat off the bench in a pinch hit situation. I could see a scenario where he and John Collins kind of alternate in that DH role a little bit early in the season, lefty righty, because you got a lot of juice between those two bats. They can both run balls out of the yard. And so Jack's going to push for playing time. I mean, he could be in left field. He could be DHing. So I think and he'll be an easy kid again for people to root for.
Now I'm going to throw several other outfield names at you, and you can tell me what you can. Starting off with Davin Whitaker, because Davin originally, he's out of Davie County High School and had a very good summer in the Cal Ripken League. I believe it was with the Bethesda Big Train, but you have Davin Whitaker, Drew Downs, formerly a Vandy commit, Alex Peltier, giving the Pirates person on the roster from Haymarket, Virginia for a 9th straight year. A little nugget there. David Lillis and Chance Hall.
Well, here's the thing. You just named a lot of really talented kids, and this is what's tough because you got so many new players here, and they wouldn't be here if they weren't good. This program doesn't recruit guys that aren't really good baseball players, right? So as we sit here today, that's the challenge, because I would tell you that I think Davin Whitaker is probably going to start in left field based on what I think that's probably your guy in left or right. He's made it really tough not to play him, and he's really talented. But between Jack, you mentioned Peltier, he's, again, the 3 freshmen that I felt like every time I went out there, like Peltier was one of them. I'm like, that guy, I think he's your backup center fielder, I think. If something were to happen to Riley, but Peltier is going to push for playing time. He may be, I could see a scenario where you have Peltier in right field and Whitaker in left field to start day 1 of the season with Riley in center. Like, that's very possible. But you've got other guys pushing hard, and they had weekends where they looked like, they were the guy. And so this is what's going to be fun. And I think, unlike in the past, because you don't have incumbents coming back, but really at a couple of positions, it could look a lot different in May and June than it does in February and March. It just could, because I think a lot of these guys are going to get opportunities, and it's going to be about what they do with those opportunities when they get them, And I think that the 2 you mentioned, of all the names you mentioned, the 2 that to me probably consistently jumped out the most in the outfield were Whitaker and Peltier, that have maybe an opportunity to that opening weekend kind of be in the lineup.
Before we shift over and talk about the pitching staff, a player that I realized I mistakenly left off kind of falls under the same mode as Braxton Trammell, in that he's a potential impact freshman, and that's Austin Irby.
Absolutely.
Had a heck of a fall.
Yep.
Really swings the bat, so whether it's maybe in a DH role or at first base, I look for Austin to have a good impact as a freshman.
Well, he's going to play, because there's no way you can keep that bat out of the lineup. Like, he's loud with that bat. And exactly. To me, again, this is the nice problem we have. Like, we could literally go through the whole roster and you could talk about kids, but Irby's another one that I didn't forget about him. I was just waiting for you to ask me, is there anybody we haven't talked about that you think is going to make a big impact on it? He's it. I mean, Irby he's going to push for playing time at first base. He's going to push for playing time at DH. Like, that bat's going to be really hard to not have in the lineup if you're Coach Godwin, because he hits, and a lot like Trammell, when he hits, it's loud. And so, he provides some real depth at first base. I could see a scenario where if Wallace goes to the mound, that's who goes to first. When you burn it, so there's a lot of, he's going to play, and I think he's going to contribute a lot, and he'll be another bat that as a freshman he'll give us some exciting moments this season for sure.
Now, taking a look at the pitching staff, as I mentioned in the lead-in, you're without what were your top 4 arms from a season ago, with you Savage, Root, Bill, and then Wyatt Lunsford Shinkman. You have Ethan Norby back, Jake Hunter coming off an injury, but recovering very well and ahead of schedule. Could potentially be ready for opening weekend. We shall see. Jaden Winter, Jackson DiLorenzo. You already talked about Colby Wallace, Michael Irby, J.D. Little. What stands out to you about that group? For me, has to be the way Ethan Orby pitched as a freshman All-American, and then of course Jake Hunter. He's pitched in a variety of roles, both starting and out of the pen.
Yeah, and I tell you, Bubba, this is the toughest. This is the toughest thing to discuss with this team, because I don't think we have any lack of talent. That's for sure. Like, we brought in some really talented guys, and I give this coaching staff a lot of credit. I sometimes hear people. I'll say this. I'm going to interject with just an editorial comment, but I hear people at times comment like that we don't recruit the portal. And it's so ridiculous, because you look at the arms we brought in and where they came from this offseason, and it's you've got to recruit with the budget you have to recruit with, and you got to recruit guys that fit your program. And it's not so simple as just saying, let's go get the very best player in the portal. We're in a day and time now where you got to pay for that. And there's a little different philosophy with how roster construction occurs at East Carolina. And I don't know who could argue with the results of that, but we brought some really talented arms in from both junior college and from other programs, be it Texas A&M, be it Oklahoma, be it junior colleges like Catawba Valley. There's a lot of new pieces, and it's going to take a little while, I think, with some of these to figure out, exactly. Liberty, I forgot Liberty. We brought 2 guys in from there. But we brought in portal guys, and all of those guys have shown at times what they're capable of doing. And so I just wanted to like bust that myth, because it's a myth, and it's made it tough, because you have some guys that are back that we know, like Norby and Jake Hunter and D'Lo and Jaden Winter, but there's so many new arms that are really talented. And it's going to take a little while to figure out, is this guy a starter or a closer? Is this guy a fireman, middle relief guy, or can he be our Sunday guy? And what I'm excited about is I think there's a lot of options to choose from, and it may take a little while to sort it out, but it's going to hopefully be one talented guy replacing another talented guy, when a guy comes out of a game. And so, we could go through all of them, because there's so many new ones, but you have some guys, freshmen as well, to be honest with you. I mean, I can tell you the Ian White Jr. kid, freshman wise, I haven't heard talked about a ton, but that kid's been really impressive and has a filthy slider. And so you have some freshmen as well, along with the 2 that everyone's talking about, who one of whom may be our 17-year-old Friday night starter. You have Lance Williams that people have talked a lot about. So there's plenty of talent there. It's just really difficult to know what the roles are going to be. I think you can say with a lot of certainty that, these guys are going to pitch, and you can name 10, 12 guys. You can say, hey, Sean Jenkins, the 17-year-old freshman, is going to start. I feel confident saying that. I don't know if he's a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday starter, but I think by the end of the year, he could very likely be, based on what scouts tell me, we could have a 17-year-old Friday night starter. He's that talented. So, we've got a lot of talent. It may take a little while to sort it out.
Yeah, really glad that Sean Jenkins made that decision to reclass, in collaboration with the Pirate coaches, and is something that you see a kid, like you're saying, 17 years old, that not only has the physical tools, but we've heard a lot about his presence on the mound, from Cliff, Austin Knight, just the way he carries himself and goes about his business. And he has a fastball that's up there in the mid-90s, and the secondary stuff to go with it.
Yeah, it's the I think people that know me know, like, I like process, and I like guys that handle their business. I think the earlier a kid can get that part down, is something I talk about a lot when kids begin to get recruited, that everything matters. And the 2 kids that I hear the other kids in the program say just behave at a level well above a freshman level are Sean Jenkins and Braxton Trammell. You go, Trent, if you just watch them go about their daily business, you'd love that kid. And I hear that from coaches. I hear it from players. I hear it from peers. And so, I know there's a lot of talented freshmen in this class. The 3 freshmen that have grabbed my eye and that I keep hearing other people talk about how good they are Sean Jenkins, Ian White Jr., and Lance Williams, that I think immediately are going to be in the mix and have an impact right off the bat. There's plenty of other freshmen that throughout the course of the year may as well. All of them could. But those 3, I feel like, look ready right now. And then they'll combine with the returning guys we've got, who we've already mentioned. And then, the just large group of transfers that we've got from either junior college or the portal that, hopefully, before too long into the season, we begin as fans to have a clearer picture of who's in what role. But I don't really care as long as they just get outs. So
a portal pitcher that I failed to mention that I didn't put on the screen a moment ago was Ryan Towers. We talked about Ryan pre-show out of Loyola Marymount. His father pitched in the big leagues, and he's a kid that there's some inconsistency last year at LMU, but against one of the things that jumped out to me, Trent, was against the better teams on their schedule, teams that were in regionals, and I think even San Diego, I believe it was, hosting a regional. You had him going 6-7 innings and not allowing more than 2 or 3 runs and pitching very well against the better competition.
Yeah, and he's not a real big kid. He's body type like a 6 foot, 175-pound type guy, but he knows what he's doing out there. And I could easily see him being a weekend starter as a lefty that sits, 88 to 91. That's the range I've seen him in, but really kind of understands how to work his way through a lineup. And so he's definitely one of the kids that I look at and think he's kind of got starter stuff written on him. But again, it's going to depend on what some of these other guys do. It's not just about him. Like, do we have enough lefties coming out of the pen? What do you do with Norby? Because they may not want to start both he and Norby. You may want to have one of those guys coming in as you may want to use Norby as a fireman, kind of like we've always had in the past with Shankman last year. And, the year before that, we've always had a guy that, hey, when the game's on the line, we're going to bring this guy in, whether it's the 5th inning or the 8th inning. We're going to kind of, we had Carter Spivey, for 2 years that kind of filled that role. And so I could see Norby kind of maybe having that type of role and maybe Towers as a starter, but it's a total guess right now.
And I want to correct something very quickly. I knew San Diego didn't sound right. UCSB, and UCSB is, of course, preseason top 25 in the D1 baseball poll again this year. But Brad Pruitt, the Oklahoma transfer, pitched sparingly for the Sooners, but last year, he in the summer, he pitched very well up in Rhode Island as a member of the Newport Gulls, as a teammate of Dixon Williams.
Yeah, I actually asked Bryant Packard about him not too long ago. Just, hey, what do you think is right? Because I don't know Brad Pruitt very well. I haven't really spent any time around him, so I just asked Bryant kind of off the cuff. I said, hey, the Pruitt kid, tell me about him. Like, do you think he's going to start or relieve? I know he's got, and he literally said, it's the same answer as with a lot of these guys. He can do both. I could see him starting, but I could see him coming out of the pen too. Like, I'm not sure right now. So, maybe over these next couple of weekends, as practice begins on Friday, and really, if they have the opportunity to get on the field and scrimmage, we'll start to maybe get a sense of like, hey, who's the first starter out there, for each side on Friday. It may give us a sense of, whether they're going to be starters or relievers, at least to start the season. But Pruitt's another one that could have either role.
Brett Antolik from Texas A&M, originally from the state of Pennsylvania. Antolik is battling an injury, from what I'm hearing, that he will not be available against George Mason. But he's a guy that gets it up there in the mid-90s and has excellent stuff.
Yeah, I know the coaches are super high on him. Obviously, that was a really good pickup. But yeah, he's not going to be ready to go at this beginning of the season. I don't know exactly. He's a pretty good sized kid. He's 6'3", 6'4". I don't. I don't know when he'll be ready, but he will not be ready to start the season, is all I've been told. It doesn't look likely anyway that he'll be ready at the very beginning of the year.
One of those guys that may not fall into that starter or reliever role. The flexibility to do, or not that he couldn't start, but just from what I'm hearing, I think that Ethan Young, the junior college transfer out of Catawba Valley Community College, same JUCO that we got Chandler Jenkins from several years ago, but Ethan, he has a lot of heat, and he's probably a guy that's going to be pitching out of the pen.
Yeah, I think he's got back into the pen written all over him. I remember when I don't remember how or why, but I had a chance to talk to Coach Palumbo kind of when we got him, and the first thing he said to me, he said, "You're going to like watching him throw the baseball." He gets it up there pretty good. I mean, he's 96, 97 miles an hour. He's been even higher than that previously. Right-handed guy, back into the pen, I think is the hope for him, that he can come in and really be electric. But he's a high velo guy, and it comes out with a little bit of hair on it when he throws it.
Yeah, Pirate fans who've been following the program for at least about the last 20 years, they'll recall Shane Matthews, and sounds kind of perhaps like a Shane Matthews kind of guy.
Well, I'll take that in a heartbeat. Yeah, if he can be that, then I'm all in.
We mentioned the two Liberty transfers. Nick Moran is a lefty that the Pirates saw last year, and he pitched very well against ECU, and the Pirates were able to get to him in the middle innings up in Lynchburg. But really like that addition of Nick Moran.
I think he'll likely be a specialist, kind of a matchup guy. He's healthy. He's ready to go. I think he at least in the fall, from just watching and talking with somebody, he's still trying to get his velo back up a little bit. But I think he'll be a pretty effective matchup guy that they'll use out of the pen, from the left side.
And that's something, looking at it, you of course have Ethan Norby that we think is going to be in the back end of the bullpen, but not a ton of left-handed options that are necessarily proven. So that's kind of what I was thinking with that. Nick Moran would probably be another quality lefty out of the bullpen.
Yeah, and I'm just going to tell you, I'm a really big Ethan Norby fan, because I just think that kid competes. And I know that term gets used a lot, but you don't have to watch him long to kind of tell he's got some bulldog in him. And I remember Connor telling me about that when he committed here. I was like, "Tell me about your brother." And Connor was in one day, and he just said, "You're going to like him, man. He's a fighter. Like he gets after it." And I just think it's going to be hard to hold Ethan out. I just think Norby's going to be a starter, and I have no reason to think that other than my own opinion. I just think that guy's going to want the baseball in big games and just say, "Give me the ball." And I just we're going to have a heck of a starting staff if that guy's not one of the three starters. I think, that's what I'll say, because I just think he's a guy I'd love to just hand the ball to and say, "Hey, go get him for 7 innings."
Wasn't going to go to this graphic just yet. We'll circle back to it later on when I'm promoting the 23 club. But you talk about that makeup of Ethan Norby. There you go. One of the games last season, and just kind of his fiery bulldog mentality, like you're saying. And, what a gutsy performance in Game 6 of that Greenville Regional against Evansville.
Yep.
Man, that was something.
Yeah, and I'm all in. Once I see that, like, from a player, and I understand how they're wired, and I know it's not just me. That's so many of us, but like, I'm all in. I mean, I'll take that all day long. Maybe there's somebody that throws 4 miles an hour harder, maybe, but you talk. I value a lot what scouts say, and then I value even more sometimes what teammates say. Like, who do you not like facing? Who's hard for you to hit off of? One of the things that most schools do, and my son did it at the end of every fall, was he had to, as a position player, and he was the starting shortstop at Liberty. It was, "Hey, we want you to rank the pitchers 1 through 18, like hardest to face, who you dislike hitting off most, and number 18 would be the easiest guy to hit off of." And I just, when you talk to other players, like Norby's a kid that the stuff plays up versus what the radar gun and the metrics may say. He he's a hard guy to face, if you're a hitter. So that counts for a lot for me. So I'm, if we're good enough that Ethan Norby, if we're good enough in the starting rotation that we don't need Ethan Norby starting, then I'd say that's a great thing. But I find it hard to imagine that guy's not going to be in the starting rotation. So if we have enough other lefty guys at the pen, then, but it's awful nice to have that versatility. I'll tell you that.
Exactly. And if he is in the pen, obviously that's subject to change at any time, based on needs. But if he is consistently in the pen throughout the year, I definitely foresee him, being a guy like a Danny Bill or a Wyatt Lunsford Shinkman that's going to have probably right around 30 appearances, give or take.
Yep, I agree.
But as we begin to wrap up this conversation, and take a look here at the Pirates schedule, there is one addition there. You see on the third weekend, there were originally just 2 games, but Kent State has since been added. But a 3-game series against George Mason to start things off. Then game 4, and there's certain things that are not much is certain in life, but playing at Campbell in game 4 for East Carolina baseball is. And then you have the traveling series against the 6th-ranked North Carolina Tar Heels that begins on a Friday night at Clark LeClaire, then Saturday at the DBAP, and Sunday at Boshemer. What are some of your takeaways about this schedule? One of the things that initially jumped out to me was just that 3-game series at home against the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, something that a lot of Pirate fans have been clamoring for years.
Yeah, I agree. That's the of the home series. That was the one that grabbed my attention the most, just because I think that's going to be a really quality opponent. That's a gritty program. I've got a lot of respect for them. I've followed them for a long time. They were in the Big South with Liberty when my son played, so I spent a lot of time competing against them. That's kind of who we had to try to unseat, and eventually did, to kind of take that conference. And so I think that's going to be a lot of fun for East Carolina to kind of, that's a club that may come in ranked above us at that point in the season. And so we'll be in our own building. There'll be some juice in the house for that, I think, and it'll be fun. I think we play Wilmington 3 times this year as well. And I think that'll be a lot of fun. I think they're going to have a really good team. They've obviously got a potential first-round pick in Tanner Thatch. So that kind of grabbed my attention that we had 3 games against Wilmington this year at different points in the year. So it looks like a competitive slate. I don't know a lot about George Mason or William and Mary in terms of what they're going to be this year. So I don't have a real good feel for that. But the rest of the schedule, and I think this is the year, Bub. I haven't looked at the full thing, but I think this is the year where we have maybe more conference road series than home series. I think it alternates every other year, if I'm not mistaken. I may be wrong on that, but I think we're on the road in conference play for more series than we're at home. Maybe.
So I haven't. I don't recall from that aspect. You open league play with Memphis, and then you go to Rice, and then you have FAU at Clark LeClaire. You go to Charlotte, to UAB, Tulane at home. So that's 3-3 thus far. At Wichita State, UTSA at home, and then at South Florida. So yes, 4 series in Greenville and 5 on the road.
Yeah, so that's something. Now we counter that with the fact we don't play on the road a lot early in the year in non-conference play, so it'll kind of balance itself out later. But the beginning of that schedule, we're at home a lot, so hopefully a chance to get off to a good start.
One other note, like you mentioned, the Pirates and the Seahawks squaring off 3 times. That was scheduled a few years ago. Because of weather, it did not happen. It may have even been the 2020 year. We were supposed to play the Seahawks in Kinston this year. That 3rd game is at Segra Stadium down in Fayetteville, the home of the low A-ball Fayetteville Woodpeckers. And I believe I saw that on the screen here, you see that Gardner-Webb game was originally at the DBAP, but it has since been moved to Segra. So the Pirates will be playing 2 games down in Fayetteville for the Pirates in that area.
Yeah, so we'll have 2 neutral site games there. We play North Carolina and Durham, so that'll be a neutral site game as well. So Yeah, be a little different type of schedule, but I think I think fans that have been to those games have enjoyed them. Be it in Charlotte, be it in the Triad area, be it in Fayetteville. Whenever we played at like CPL parks or minor league parks, wherever it may be, that it's been fun atmospheres.
Yeah, 3 against the Niners at Hayes on campus this year, and the Pirates always, like you just mentioned, have a strong contingent at Hayes Stadium there on the campus of the Charlotte 49ers. And then you have to wrap up the show, we'll go to our Around the Horn segment, a speed round. Favorite baseball movie?
Ooh, I'm going to go Major League with Moneyball a close second.
Are you superstitious? If so, what are those superstitions?
I am, but it's mainly just where runs are concerned. Normally, I kind of stand in the stadium in different spots. If we have a big inning and score, I'll stay there when we're hitting, and I'll leave that spot when the other team's hitting.
Yeah, I know you're kind of like me. You have that roaming ticket.
Yes.
You might see in the first base bleachers, or standing right behind the plate, or out in the jungle, wherever. Favorite MLB team? And
Braves.
Yep. We're in agreement on that. Lifelong Braves fan. Dale Murphy was my first favorite player.
Me too.
Back before he got traded to the Phillies, and never got the chance to see him as a Brave, but did have the opportunity, I guess it was in 1990 or 91, to see him for the Phillies at old Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. And so you just answered the next question. Favorite MLB player, Dale Murphy, and then your favorite restaurant in Greenville.
Well, I'd say Chipper overall. Like Dale Murphy was my first favorite player. Gotcha. Chipper replaced him, and then Smolt's probably favorite pitcher of all time. Current Brave, probably Ozzie Albies. I just love watching how much fun he has when he plays. Favorite restaurant, you said?
Correct.
Oh, boy, that's a tough one. I've got 5 or 6 in the rotation here in Greenville. I'm going to say the one we probably eat at the most, which is right outside our neighborhood, which is Atavola. We probably eat there the most, and I've never had a bad meal at Atavola. So, but I love tiebreakers. We eat there a lot. I love Basil's. We love Nino's. Anyway, if I had to go one, I'll go Atavola.
Nino's was the choice of Ben Terwilliger.
Oh.
And it was either Chris Holba or Carter Cunningham sided with you for Atavola.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can literally ride my bike to it. It's at the kind of front of our neighborhood. So we actually grab food from there tonight on the way home from work. Roads are really bad, but we're getting some work done in our house, and we don't have a stove right now. So we pick food up from there on the way home tonight.
A couple other quick notes as we're wrapping up the show. Bethany Bratcher's book, Never Take This for Granted. If you do not own it and you love East Carolina baseball, why do you not own it? You definitely need to go out and get that book, or you can, I guess, still go to ecubaseballbook.com and get your copy. And then also, if you're not a member of the 23 Club, go to 23club.org. Mike Harrington, former teammate of Cliff Godwin, was a member of that 2004 Super Regional team that went down and played the Gamecocks. But Mike Harrington and some others do an excellent job with that branch, if you will, of Team Boneyard. Again, 23club.org to support Pirate Baseball. I appreciate all Mike and others do to support the program. But Trent, really appreciate the time, and I know we'll catch up with you throughout the season. We look forward to periodically having you on, perhaps on our weekly recap show, which is This Week in Pirate Baseball.
Well, Bubba, thanks for having me. I always love talking to you. I always love running into you, and I appreciate everything you do to support Pirate Athletics. So go Pirates.
Yep, go Pirates. Pirate Nation, that is Trent Britt of Next Level Training Center. Appreciate him coming on the show. Until next time, be sure to follow us on social media, on Instagram and X. You can find us at Jungle Tales Pod. And then on YouTube and Facebook and Spotify, you can find us by simply searching Jungle Tales, a Pirate Baseball podcast. But for Trent Britt, I'm Bubba Rosenbaum. Until next time, go Pirates.